In the quiet suburbs of Meadowbrook Estates, life seemed perfect, well-maintained lawns, friendly neighbors, and a community bound by strict rules. But beneath the pristine exterior lurked a problem. Karen McAllister, the overbearing HOA president, had a habit of using her position to impose ridiculous fines on residents. What began as small nuisances quickly spiraled into something much more sinister. Today, we'll uncover how one neighbor stood up against the abuse of power, exposing corruption, and changing the course of their community forever. In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Meadowbrook Estates, everything seemed perfect. The lawns were meticulously trimmed, the houses gleamed in the sunlight, and the residents smiled and waved as they went about their business. It was a place where people came to escape the chaos of the world, where they could live in peace, free from the stresses that defined city life. But beneath the pristine facade of this idyllic community, something was festering. And at the heart of it was Karen McAllister, the self-proclaimed queen of the Homeowners Association, HOA. Karen had always been the kind of person who reveled in control. As the president of the HOA, she wielded her power with a heavy hand, enforcing rules with an iron fist. No one dared to challenge her authority, not because they were afraid of the rules, but because Karen made it clear that those who defied her would regret it. She had made the rules of Meadowbrook Estates into her personal empire, and she wasn't about to let anyone infringe on her territory. I had only moved to Meadowbrook Estates a year ago, after a painful divorce. I needed a fresh start. I was drawn to the neighborhood by the peaceful atmosphere and the promise of a life untouched by the turmoil of the past. My house was modest but cozy. Nestled among the others in the neighborhood, I took pride in my small garden, a haven of flowers, herbs, and vegetables that I had cultivated with care. It was a reflection of my desire for peace and growth, both in my personal life and in my new home, but it didn't take long for Karen to notice. She was always lurking, her sharp eyes scanning the neighborhood for any sign of imperfection. It was only a matter of time before she found my garden. And when she did, she wasted no time in delivering a violation notice. The reason, my garden hose was left out for a few extra hours, and a single fallen leaf from my tree had blown onto the sidewalk. I couldn't believe it. My garden, my sanctuary, was being scrutinized for the smallest of infractions. But I wasn't about to back down. I had lived through too much to let someone like Karen intimidate me. I read through the violation notice carefully and quickly, discovered something odd. The HOA's bylaws stated that violation notices had to be approved by at least 2 board members before they could be issued, but there was no mention of that in my notice. In fact, Karen had issued it on her own, without the proper procedure. This was my first clue that something wasn't right. I decided to fight back. I emailed the board members, attaching the violation notice and citing the relevant bylaws. I expected the matter to be resolved swiftly, that the board would correct Karen's mistake and remind her of the rules. But what I didn't expect was what happened next. The following morning, as I was having my coffee, I heard a loud knock at my door. I opened it to find Karen standing there, her face flushed with anger. Without a word, she pushed her way inside, her eyes blazing with fury. "I know it was you," she spat. "You think you can go behind my back and question my authority? You've made a big mistake, and I will make sure you regret it." Her words stung, but I stood my ground. "Karen, you've made a mistake. You didn't follow the procedure. You can't just issue fines on your own without the approval of the board." Karen's eyes narrowed, and she took a step closer, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. If you keep challenging me, you'll regret it. I'll make your life here impossible." She left just as abruptly as she had arrived. But I could feel the tension in the air. I wasn't afraid. But I knew that Karen wasn't going to back down easily. I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to fight for what was right. 2 days later, I received another violation notice. This time, the fine had increased, and the reason was even more absurd, creating community discord. The charge was completely fabricated, and I knew it was nothing more than retaliation for my email to the board. But this time, I wasn't going to take it lying down. I reached out to the board again, but this time, something felt different. I knew Karen wasn't acting alone. That's when Sandra, my neighbor from across the street, approached me. Sandra had been quietly observing everything that had been happening, and she had something to show me. She handed me a flash drive and explained that she had captured something on her doorbell camera that would change everything. As I plugged the drive into my computer, my heart sank. The footage showed Karen walking up to my porch and setting fire to the certified letter that had been sent to me. She stood there, laughing, as the letter burned to ash, clearly enjoying the destruction. The footage was shocking, and I knew that this was the evidence I needed. I sent the video to the HOA board and shared it with a few trusted neighbors. Within hours, the video had gone viral. The entire neighborhood was outraged, and Karen's reign of terror was finally exposed for all to see. The HOA board took immediate action, and within days, Karen was arrested for mail tampering and destruction of legal documents. But that wasn't all. As the investigation unfolded, it was revealed that Karen had been issuing unauthorized fines for years and pocketing the money. She had been using her position to line her pockets, and the board had never known. At the trial, Karen stood before the judge, her once confident demeanor now shattered. She had thought she was untouchable, but in that moment, she realized how wrong she had been. The judge sentenced her to 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $10,000 fine. Karen was banned from ever serving on an HOA board again, and her time as the Tyrant of Meadowbrook Estates was over. But the story didn't end there. As the dust settled, the neighborhood began to heal. The HOA was reformed, and new checks and balances were put in place to ensure that no one could ever abuse their power again. The residents of Meadowbrook Estates had come together to fight for justice, and in doing so, they had reclaimed their community. As for me, I learned that sometimes standing up for what's right comes with a price, but it was a price I was willing to pay. Meadowbrook Estates was no longer the place of fear and control that Karen had made it. It had been transformed into a community where people could live freely, knowing that their voices mattered. Karen's reign was over, but the lessons she left behind would linger. Power, when misused, is a dangerous thing, and even the most powerful can fall.